Michael stared at the text message glowing on Lisa's phone, his stomach twisting into knots. The message wasn't meant for him, but she had left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, her carelessness betraying her secrets. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Same time tomorrow? His breath hitched as he stared at the sender's name. Eric. A name he had never heard before, yet the tone of the message left no room for doubt. Lisa, the woman he had built a life with, was seeing another man. Michael's mind raced, his emotions a storm of anger, hurt, and disbelief. He wanted to storm into the living room where Lisa was sitting, demand answers, and let his fury spill out. But he stopped himself. Confronting her now, without proof, would only give her room to lie and twist the truth. Instead, he quietly put the phone back on the counter, the screen darkening as if nothing had happened. Michael walked to his office, shutting the door behind him. The house was silent, but inside him, a storm was brewing. He pulled out his laptop and began planning. This wasn't going to be a simple confrontation. If Lisa thought she could cheat and get away with it, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Sitting at his desk, Michael opened a new folder on his computer and labeled it Truth. He began searching for tools to track her movements, apps to recover deleted messages, and ways to discreetly monitor her phone activity. If Lisa wanted to play games, Michael was determined to play them better. From that moment on, he became an observer in his own marriage. He watched as Lisa continued to smile at him, pretending everything was normal. He noted her sudden late-night work meetings, her overly guarded phone, and the new perfume she claimed was just a gift from a friend. Michael said nothing, but each lie she told added fuel to the fire growing inside him. By the end of the week, Michael had gathered enough information to confirm his suspicions. The tracker he installed in Lisa's car showed her frequent visits to a boutique hotel downtown. The messages he recovered from her phone painted a clear picture of her affair with Eric. And yet, Michael remained calm. He wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Lisa thought she was clever, thought she had hidden her affair well. But Michael knew the truth, and soon, so would everyone else. As he sat in the darkened office, staring at the evidence on his screen, Michael whispered to himself, "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." Michael spent the next few weeks meticulously gathering every piece of evidence he could find. Each discovery felt like another knife in his back, but he pushed through the pain with one goal in mind: complete and undeniable exposure. He wasn't just going to confront Lisa. He was going to ensure she faced the full weight of her actions in a way she would never forget. The private investigator Michael hired quickly became an essential part of his plan. Within days, the investigator delivered a folder filled with photos, Lisa and Eric meeting at the boutique hotel, laughing at a cafe, and even walking hand in hand at the park where Michael had proposed to her years ago. Michael clenched his fists as he flipped through the photos. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional. She had taken the sacred moments of their life together and shared them with another man. But instead of letting anger consume him, Michael channeled it into focus. He compiled the photos, texts, and GPS logs into a detailed file, neatly organized with dates and times. But this wasn't just for him. This was for the moment he would confront Lisa, the moment she would have no choice but to face the truth. Lisa, meanwhile, carried on as though everything was normal. She smiled at Michael over dinner, kissed him goodnight, and even suggested they plan a weekend getaway, something she hadn't done in years. Michael played along, masking his growing resentment with calm indifference. He knew her sudden interest in their marriage was nothing more than a cover for her guilt, a way to convince herself that she wasn't the villain in their story. One evening, as Lisa prepared for yet another late-night meeting, Michael approached her in the hallway. "You've been working a lot lately," he said casually, leaning against the wall. Lisa froze for a split second before flashing a practiced smile. "Yeah, it's been crazy at the office. We've got a big project coming up." Michael nodded, his expression unreadable. "Just don't overwork yourself. You know how much I care about you." Her smile faltered, just for a moment, before she kissed him on the cheek and left. Michael watched her go, his jaw tightening. That night, Michael sat in his office staring at the evidence on his laptop. His phone buzzed, and it was a text from the private investigator. "They're at the Carlton Hotel, room 312. Do you want me to keep tracking them?" Michael stared at the message for a moment before replying, "No need. I've got everything I need." He leaned back in his chair, a plan forming in his mind. Lisa thought she was safe, that she had covered her tracks well enough to fool him. But Michael was done watching from the sidelines. It was time to take control, to turn the tables, and to show Lisa just how wrong she had been. The perfect opportunity for Michael's plan came when Lisa announced over dinner that her office was hosting a gala in 2 weeks to celebrate the completion of a major project. "It's going to be at the Carlton Hotel," she said casually, sipping her wine. "Just a small event for the team." Michael's lips twitched in a faint smile as he set down his fork. The Carlton Hotel, where she and Eric had been meeting for months. "Sounds like fun," he said, his voice steady. "Want me to come along?" Lisa paused mid-sip, her eyes darting to him before she quickly recovered. "Oh, it's just for employees," she said with a light laugh. "You'd probably be bored to tears with all the work talk." Michael nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "Fair enough. Have a good time then." Inside, however, he was already planning. The gala would be the perfect setting, a public event, surrounded by her colleagues and peers, where she couldn't escape the truth. In the days leading up to the event, Michael fine-tuned every detail of his plan. He printed out high-quality photos of Lisa and Eric together, prepared a slideshow of incriminating evidence, and even hired a videographer to discreetly capture the moment. This wasn't just about confronting her. It was about ensuring she faced the full weight of her actions in front of everyone she cared about. The night of the gala arrived, and Michael watched as Lisa dressed meticulously for the event. She wore a sleek black gown, her hair styled perfectly, and her makeup flawless. She looked every bit the confident, successful woman she pretended to be. "You look amazing," Michael said, his tone calm. "Thanks," Lisa replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She grabbed her clutch and kissed him on the cheek. "Don't wait up. I might be late." Michael watched her leave, his face impassive. "Oh, I won't wait up," he muttered under his breath, grabbing his car keys and the envelope of evidence. When Michael arrived at the Carlton Hotel, the gala was already in full swing. The ballroom was filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. Lisa was easy to spot. Her laughter rang out as she stood near the bar, chatting with Eric. She looked carefree, radiant even, completely unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Michael waited until the speeches began, blending into the crowd unnoticed. When the room quieted, he stepped forward, taking the microphone from the host. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "I know I'm not part of Lisa's team, but I thought I'd take a moment to celebrate the hard work that brought us all here tonight." The crowd chuckled politely, their attention shifting to him. Lisa froze, her glass halfway to her lips, as her eyes locked on Michael. "And what better way to celebrate," Michael continued, "than by highlighting the connections we've built along the way?" With that, he pressed a button on the remote in his hand. The large screen behind him lit up, displaying the first photo. Lisa and Eric walking hand in hand into the hotel. Gasps rippled through the room as Michael clicked through the slideshow. Each image was more damning than the last. Lisa and Eric kissing, sitting intimately at a cafe, and entering the same hotel room on multiple occasions. Lisa's face turned pale, her hands trembling as she tried to speak. "Michael," he held up a hand, cutting her off. "Save it, Lisa. Tonight isn't about your excuses. It's about the truth." The crowd was silent, their attention fixed on the screen. Eric shifted uncomfortably, trying to slip away unnoticed, but Michael wasn't done. "And to Eric," Michael said, his tone icy, "thank you for showing me what I deserve, and what I don't." The room erupted into whispers and murmurs as Lisa broke down, covering her face with her hands. Michael stepped away from the podium, his job done. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was her reckoning. The aftermath of the gala was brutal for Lisa. As Michael walked out of the hotel, leaving her to face the stunned crowd, she felt the weight of every judgmental stare in the room. Guests whispered among themselves, their glances cutting through her like knives. Eric had slipped away entirely, abandoning her to deal with the fallout alone. By the time Lisa got home that night, the full scope of her humiliation had set in. She found Michael sitting calmly in the living room, sipping a glass of whiskey. He didn't even look at her as she stood in the doorway, disheveled and broken. "You had no right to do that," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. Michael finally looked up, his expression cold and unyielding. "No right?" he repeated. "I had every right, Lisa. You lied to me, betrayed me, and thought you could get away with it. Consider yourself lucky I didn't invite your parents to the gala." Lisa flinched, her composure cracking. "Michael, I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it. It was a mistake." He set his glass down and stood, towering over her. "A mistake is spilling coffee, Lisa. What you did was deliberate, repeated, planned, and now you're going to live with the consequences." In the days that followed, Lisa's life began to unravel. Word of her affair spread quickly through their social circle. Friends she had once charmed now ignored her calls, their loyalty firmly with Michael. Even her family, once supportive of her every decision, expressed their disappointment, distancing themselves from her. Her professional life wasn't spared either. The photos and details of her affair had made their way to her office, where whispers and side glances followed her everywhere. Eventually, her boss called her into his office. "This situation has become too disruptive," he said, handing her a folder. "We think it's best for everyone if you step down. You'll receive a severance package, but we can't have this kind of scandal associated with the company." Lisa left the office that day with a cardboard box of her belongings, her head hung low. The career she had spent years building was over, all because of her choices. Meanwhile, Michael thrived. With Lisa out of his life, he felt a sense of freedom he hadn't experienced in years. He finalized the divorce, ensuring that Lisa walked away with as little as possible. The house, the savings, and even the car remained his. He had worked too hard to let her greed strip him of what he had earned. His focus shifted to rebuilding his life. He reconnected with old friends, took on new projects at work, and even joined a local fitness group. The physical and emotional weight he had carried during his marriage began to lift, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as Michael walked through the park, he saw Lisa sitting alone on a bench. She looked disheveled and tired, her once vibrant aura replaced by a hollow, defeated presence. She glanced up, meeting his eyes with a flicker of desperation. Michael paused for a moment, his gaze steady. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. Lisa called after him, her voice cracking, but he didn't stop. She had made her choices, and now she was living with them. Lisa's life continued its downward spiral as the consequences of her actions weighed heavier with each passing day. Her once busy social calendar was empty, and the friends she used to laugh with had all but disappeared. Every attempt to rebuild her life seemed futile. She applied for jobs, but her tarnished reputation made it nearly impossible to get a call back. Bills piled up, and her shabby apartment became a stark reminder of everything she had lost. In moments of despair, Lisa would stare at her phone, tempted to call Michael. She rehearsed what she would say, imagining herself begging for forgiveness and asking for another chance. But every time, her pride, or perhaps the realization that she didn't deserve it, held her back. Meanwhile, Michael's life was flourishing. Free from the toxicity of Lisa's betrayal, he focused on the things that truly mattered. His career soared as he took on leadership roles, his hard work finally being recognized. He found joy in simple things, cooking meals for himself, hiking with new friends, and even exploring hobbies he had long forgotten. One evening, while attending a networking event, Michael met Claire, a woman whose warmth and kindness were as refreshing as they were unexpected. Unlike Lisa, Claire was genuine, with a down-to-earth attitude that immediately put Michael at ease. They spent the evening talking about everything from work to their shared love of travel. For the first time in a long while, Michael felt a spark of something new and real. Lisa, on the other hand, was sinking deeper into isolation. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media, she came across a photo of Michael. He was at an outdoor event, smiling with a group of friends. Her heart sank when she noticed Claire standing beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Michael had moved on, and he looked happier than ever. Lisa threw her phone onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. She had thought she could handle the consequences of her actions, but seeing Michael thriving without her was a pain she hadn't anticipated. Michael, however, had no time to dwell on the past. His relationship with Claire blossomed, each day bringing new moments of joy and connection. She encouraged him to embrace the future, to let go of the pain and focus on what lay ahead. One evening, as they walked along the beach, Claire asked, "Do you ever think about her?" Michael paused for a moment, the sound of the waves filling the silence. "Not really," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "She's a part of my past, but that's where she belongs. My future looks a lot better without her in it." Claire squeezed his hand, her own smile reflecting his newfound peace. Michael's journey wasn't just about moving on, it was about reclaiming his life, his dignity, and his happiness. Lisa had thought her affair would go unnoticed, that she could live two lives without consequence. But Michael had shown her that every action had a price, and she had paid dearly for hers. Months turned into a year, and Michael's life had transformed completely. The pain and betrayal that had once consumed him were now distant memories. His relationship with Claire grew stronger with each passing day, built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. For the first time in years, Michael felt like himself again, confident, fulfilled, and at peace. The house that had once been a battleground of unspoken tension and deceit was now a sanctuary. Michael had redecorated, removing every trace of the life he had shared with Lisa. Vibrant colors replaced the muted tones, fresh flowers adorned the kitchen counter, and laughter filled the space whenever Claire visited. One evening, Michael hosted a dinner party for his closest friends. It was a celebration of new beginnings, and as he stood at the head of the table, raising a glass to his guests, he realized just how far he had come. "To moving forward," he said, his voice steady and full of gratitude. "And to the people who remind us that life doesn't end with betrayal, it begins anew." The room erupted in cheers, and Michael felt a deep sense of closure. Lisa, meanwhile, was trapped in the consequences of her actions. Her once vibrant personality had been replaced with a hollow, defeated demeanor. The friends she had alienated, the family she had disappointed, and the lover who had abandoned her, none of them were there to support her now. She had tried to reach out to Michael several times, but every message went unanswered. Deep down, she knew she had no right to ask for forgiveness, but the silence only made her regret cut deeper. One afternoon, while walking through the city, Lisa spotted Michael and Claire at a cafe. They were laughing, their faces lit with genuine joy. For a brief moment, Lisa considered approaching them, but the look on Michael's face, a look of pure contentment, stopped her. She realized that she had no place in his life anymore. As Lisa walked away, tears filled her eyes. She had destroyed her marriage for fleeting excitement, and now she was left with nothing but regret. Michael, on the other hand, had no regrets. His journey had been painful, but it had led him to a life that was stronger and more meaningful than the one he had before. He had reclaimed his dignity, his happiness, and his future. One evening, as he and Claire watched the sunset from the porch, she turned to him and said, "You've been through so much, but here you are, stronger than ever. I'm proud of you." Michael smiled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Life isn't about what happens to you," he said. "It's about how you rise after the fall." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Michael felt a profound sense of peace. His past no longer defined him. His future was his own to create, and it was brighter than ever. The anniversary of the night Michael exposed Lisa's betrayal came and went without him giving it much thought. His life had moved so far beyond that painful chapter that it barely registered anymore. The anger, the heartbreak, and even the need for revenge had all faded, replaced by a calm sense of triumph and growth. One afternoon, while going through some old belongings, Michael came across a box of memories from his marriage with Lisa. There were photos, love notes, and even a small souvenir from their honeymoon. He stared at the box for a long moment, not with pain, but with clarity. These items no longer represented who he was. They were relics of a life he had outgrown. That evening, Michael lit a small fire in his backyard. Piece by piece, he tossed the contents of the box into the flames, watching as the past burned away. The act wasn't one of anger, but of closure, a symbolic way of letting go of the pain and betrayal that had once consumed him. Lisa, on the other hand, couldn't escape her past. The choices she had made haunted her daily, a constant reminder of everything she had lost. She lived in a small, cluttered apartment, working a menial job that barely paid the bills. Her days were spent in quiet regret, replaying the moments when she could have made different choices, when she could have fought for the life she had instead of throwing it away. One evening, she wrote Michael a letter. It was raw, heartfelt, and filled with apologies. She poured out her regret, begging for forgiveness, not to rekindle their relationship, but to ease the burden of her guilt. After sealing the envelope, she hesitated. What right did she have to ask for absolution? In the end, she decided to send it, though she didn't expect a reply. When Michael received the letter, he read it carefully. For a moment, he considered responding, if only to give Lisa the closure she seemed to need. But as he folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope, he realized he didn't owe her anything. Forgiveness wasn't something he could offer. It was something she would have to find within herself. As Michael moved forward with his life, his relationship with Claire deepened. They became partners in every sense of the word, supporting each other through challenges and celebrating each other's successes. Together, they built a life filled with laughter, love, and mutual respect, something Michael had once thought was out of reach. On a quiet evening, as they walked along the beach, Claire asked, "Do you ever think about her?" Michael looked out at the waves, the sound of the ocean calming and steady. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not in the way you'd think. It's not anger or sadness anymore. It's just a reminder of how far I've come." Claire smiled, wrapping her arm around his. "Well, you've come a long way, and I'm glad I get to share this part of the journey with you." Michael glanced at her, his heart full. "So am I." The story didn't end with revenge, it ended with redemption. Michael had turned the pain of betrayal into a source of strength, using it to rebuild his life and find happiness on his own terms. Lisa's life remained a cautionary tale, a reminder that actions have consequences. But for Michael, the future was bright, and the past was just that, the past. As he walked hand in hand with Claire, the sun setting in brilliant colors on the horizon, Michael knew one thing for certain. He was free.